Coco Gauff has just stepped into one of the most sensitive debates in professional tennis, and her message is far more nuanced than many expected. The WTA Tour has introduced a new genetic screening policy for players competing in women's tennis, designed to determine eligibility through a one-time test for the SRY gene. And when Coco Gauff was asked about the controversial new policy, she didn't simply choose one side. Instead, Coco delivered a message about fair competition, respect, and protecting people from unnecessary attacks. Her comments have already sparked a huge reaction among tennis fans. So what exactly has the WTA changed? Why is the SRY gene test being introduced? And what did Coco Gauff actually say about fairness in women's sports and the transgender community? Let's break it all down. The WTA's big policy change. The Women's Tennis Association has introduced a new eligibility process requiring players to undergo a one-time genetic screening for the SRY gene. According to the WTA, the test can be conducted through a cheek swab or blood sample, with confidentiality and privacy safeguards in place. The policy took effect on July 21, 2026. The SRY gene is commonly associated with the development of male biological characteristics. The WTA says the purpose of the new screening is to establish eligibility for women's professional tennis and maintain fair competition. This represents a significant change from the previous framework. Under the earlier policy, transgender women could potentially compete under specific eligibility conditions, including requirements involving gender identity and testosterone levels. The new approach moves toward a genetic screening model instead. And that is exactly why the policy has generated so much discussion across the tennis world. Why is the WTA doing this? The WTA says its goal is to protect the integrity of women's professional tennis and maintain meaningful competition. Supporters of the policy argue that women's sports need clear eligibility standards because biological differences can potentially affect athletic performance. But critics argue that genetic testing can raise complicated questions about privacy, inclusion, and discrimination. That's what makes this issue so difficult. It isn't simply a conversation about tennis. It touches science, sports policy, privacy, gender identity, and the rights of athletes. And Coco Gauff appears to understand exactly how complicated that conversation has become. Coco Gauff's nuanced response. When Coco Gauff was asked about the new policy at the National Bank Open, she gave an answer that immediately caught attention. Coco said she understands the reasoning behind protecting fairness in women's sports. But at the same time, she expressed concern that the debate could create hostility toward the transgender community. Her position was essentially this: fair competition matters, but so does treating people with respect. Coco made it clear that she supports the transgender community while also supporting the need to preserve fairness in women's sports. And that's what made her response stand out. She didn't frame the conversation as simply one side versus another. Instead, she acknowledged that there are legitimate concerns on both sides. Coco's message about fairness. For Coco, fairness in competition is clearly an important principle. Professional tennis is built around the idea that every player should compete under rules designed to create a level playing field. Every ranking point matters. Every tournament matters. Every match can affect a player's career. So when eligibility rules change, players naturally want to understand exactly how those rules work and why they exist. Coco's comments suggest that protecting competitive fairness is important, but she also doesn't want that discussion to become an excuse for attacking people. And that distinction is extremely important. Aryna Sabalenka takes a different approach. Coco Gauff isn't the only major tennis star speaking about the policy. World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka has also publicly supported the WTA's new testing approach. Sabalenka said she believes the policy is important for maintaining fairness on the women's tour and indicated that she is comfortable with every player being tested under the same rule. So while Coco and Sabalenka both recognize the importance of fairness in women's tennis, their public messaging has been noticeably different. Sabalenka has focused strongly on competitive fairness. Coco has emphasized fairness while also stressing respect and avoiding hostility toward the transgender community. And that difference has created a fascinating conversation among tennis fans. Why this policy is so controversial. The biggest controversy isn't simply about whether players should be tested. It's about what the test means. Supporters believe a clear eligibility standard can prevent uncertainty and protect the women's category. Critics argue that genetic testing doesn't capture every aspect of human biology and that eligibility policies can have serious consequences for transgender and intersex athletes. The WTA itself recognizes that this is a sensitive and complex issue. Final thought. Coco Gauff's response may not satisfy everyone, but perhaps that's exactly why it is worth paying attention to. Instead of turning a complicated issue into a simple argument, Coco recognized that sports policy can involve competing concerns. Fairness matters. Inclusion matters. Respect matters. And professional tennis now has to figure out how to balance those principles under a completely new eligibility framework. The WTA has made its decision. Now the real test will be how this policy works in the real world, and whether the organization can maintain competitive fairness while treating every athlete with dignity. What do you think about the WTA's new genetic testing policy? Do you agree that women's tennis needs a clear eligibility standard? And what do you think about Coco Gauff's balanced response? Fairness in sport, or respect and inclusion, or can both principles exist together? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more breaking updates on Coco Gauff, the WTA Tour, and the biggest stories in women's tennis, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next chapter of this debate could be even bigger. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.